Power is never what it pretends to be. What you see is only the surface, a mask carefully crafted to deceive the untrained eye. The man who parades himself as strong, untouchable, and absolute often relies on pillars that are fragile and temporary. His throne stands not on stone, but on shifting sands, and yet the illusion of stability is enough to keep the crowd obedient. The masses look at crowns, armies, titles, and wealth, believing that these are the sources of authority. But in truth they are only ornaments, distractions meant to blind the many from seeing where power actually lives. The dangerous truth, the one you are not supposed to know, is that power hides itself in places few dare to look. It does not always reside in the one who gives the orders, but often in the one who whispers them. A king may sit on his throne, but his decisions can be swayed by a confidant, a mistress, a servant with secrets, or a quiet advisor who shapes his mind. The illusion convinces you that power is loud, visible, and commanding, when in reality the most potent influence is subtle, invisible, and silent. Those who understand this secret play a different game. They do not chase the appearance of power, which everyone sees and envies. They pursue the levers behind it. To control perception is greater than to hold the sword, because the sword can be turned against its master. But perception, once bent, enslaves willingly. Men will fight and die believing they are serving one master, never realizing they are dancing to the tune of another. That is the brilliance of hidden power. It demands no recognition to dominate. Consider how often the crowd mistakes authority for power. A man in uniform commands respect because the masses associate his clothing with strength. But strip him of the uniform, and he is only another face in the crowd. The true power is not the man. It is the institution that gave him the symbol. And yet, even the institution is a mask, for it too can be manipulated by a small circle who know how to shape laws, command wealth, and influence belief. The soldier may carry the weapon, but someone unseen determines when it will be fired. This is why those who rise too quickly, who mistake position for power, fall with equal speed. They think the throne itself will protect them, that the crown itself is enough to command. But the throne is nothing without the hidden web that sustains it. A ruler who fails to recognize the unseen hands behind his authority will soon discover how quickly those hands can withdraw their support, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. It is not always the loudest voice that dictates the future, but the one that decides what words are allowed to be spoken. The deception is necessary, for if the majority ever understood how power truly functions, the world would descend into chaos. People prefer illusions. They crave the comfort of believing that what they see is what is real. They want to trust invisible authority because it absolves them of responsibility. To know the truth that those who appear weak can hold the strongest chains and those who appear strong can be puppets is to strip away that comfort and face the cold mechanics of human ambition. Those who rule understand this well. They manufacture images of dominance, symbols of stability, stories of righteousness. These keep the crowd in line, keep their eyes fixed on the stage rather than what happens behind the curtain. But for the one who seeks to rise above the crowd, the illusion must be shattered. To mistake appearance for reality is to live as prey. To see through it, to recognize that true power is rarely visible, is the first step toward wielding it yourself. The most dangerous players in the game of power are rarely the ones you see in front of you. They are not always the generals or the kings, not always the men who sign decrees or raise their voices in command. They are often the ones who stand silently in the shadows, controlling information, planting ideas, shaping decisions before they are even spoken. They know that once a man believes an idea to be his own, he will defend it with his life, never realizing it was placed there by another hand. This is why appearances deceive, and why most people live their entire lives without realizing they were being directed like actors on a stage. Power is a theater, a play designed for the eyes of the crowd, but the script, the lighting, and the direction are written somewhere else, by someone the crowd does not see. To master power, you must stop staring at the actors and start studying the hidden authors. For it is not the mask that matters, but the hand that carves it. And once you begin to notice these hidden hands, once you start to see who truly commands, the world begins to look very different. The truth about loyalty is one of the most deceptive illusions in human nature. People like to imagine it as a noble virtue, a bond that cannot be broken, a sacred tie that secures the loyalty of friends, allies, and followers. They speak of loyalty as if it were eternal, something that outlasts hardship, betrayal, and opportunity. But the truth is far darker and far more useful to the one who dares to see it clearly. Loyalty is never permanent. It is never unconditional. It is not a virtue at all. It is a strategy, and strategies change the moment circumstances shift. When men claim to be loyal, what they are truly declaring is that, for now, their interests align with yours. Their loyalty exists only as long as their benefit outweighs their cost. Once the balance tips, once your presence no longer serves their survival, ambition, or pride, loyalty dissolves like smoke. This is why so many powerful figures are betrayed not by their enemies, but by their closest allies. The same men who swore devotion, who ate at their table and drank from their cup, suddenly turn, not because they stopped believing in loyalty, but because they discovered a more useful alliance elsewhere. The dangerous truth is that loyalty cannot be relied upon. It can only be managed. To depend on it is weakness. To understand and manipulate it is strength. The crowd believes that loyalty comes from love, honor, or duty, but it comes only from interest. A soldier is loyal to his commander because his survival depends on it. A servant is loyal to his master because his livelihood is tied to it. A friend is loyal as long as you do not outshine him too greatly, as long as envy does not poison his blood. The moment loyalty becomes a burden rather than a benefit, it shatters. History is littered with examples. Kings who believed their guards would die for them, only to be assassinated by the very hands sworn to protect them. Generals who placed blind trust in their men, only to watch them defect when the enemy offered gold, land, or freedom. Lovers who promised forever, only to vanish when circumstances grew inconvenient. Each of these betrayals springs from the same root. Self-interest outweighs sentiment. What people call loyalty is merely a temporary alignment of needs. The clever ruler or ambitious individual does not demand loyalty, nor do they waste time mourning its loss. Instead, they create systems where loyalty is rewarded and disloyalty punished, not through words, but through structure. They ensure that as long as someone serves them, that service brings profit, security, or survival. They bind others not with love, but with dependence, not with honor, but with necessity. Loyalty that depends on feelings is fragile. Loyalty that depends on survival is unbreakable. This is why fear often proves more reliable than love. Love fades, envy rises, and admiration is easily stolen by another. But fear roots itself deep into the soul, reminding a man of what he stands to lose should he dare to turn away. Fear makes loyalty less about devotion and more about calculation, a reminder that betrayal comes with a cost too high to pay. When a man fears the consequences of betrayal, his loyalty is reinforced not by choice, but by survival instinct. Yet even fear alone is not enough. The most skilled manipulators of loyalty combine both the carrot and the stick. They grant benefits so long as service is maintained, but make the price of betrayal so severe that few dare to risk it. In this way, loyalty is transformed from a fleeting emotion into a controlled mechanism. Those who rely only on affection, or who naively believe promises of eternal devotion, are inevitably destroyed. Those who understand the mechanics of loyalty bend it to their will, knowing it to be no more sacred than a business arrangement. It is also essential to recognize the role of perception in loyalty. People must believe that you reward those who serve and punish those who betray. Even a single act of betrayal left unpunished spreads like rot, convincing others that loyalty is optional. Likewise, a single display of generosity to the loyal can cement the image that devotion is profitable. People are not loyal to you. They are loyal to what serving you gives them. The moment someone else offers more, you will see their true allegiance. The truth about loyalty is not meant for everyone, because most people cannot live without illusions. They want to believe that family, friends, soldiers, or subjects are loyal because of love or respect. To strip away this illusion terrifies them, because it exposes the fragility of all human ties. But for those who seek to rise, to dominate, to lead, this truth is a weapon. It reveals that loyalty is not a gift to be received, but a resource to be engineered. The one who understands this can bend men to his will, secure alliances, and prevent betrayal before it happens. The use of fear and silence, there are two forces that shape human behavior more reliably than any promise, oath, or declaration: fear and silence. These are the weapons the powerful hide from the masses. For if everyone understood how effective they are, no man would trust a single word spoken in public life. Fear and silence are not equal to love, persuasion, or loyalty. They surpass them. They are the foundation upon which obedience is built, the invisible chains that keep men in line when all other bonds fail. Fear is ancient, older than reason. It bypasses logic and seizes the body directly. A man may argue against duty, he may question love, he may betray loyalty, but when fear grips him, his choice is narrow to one: survival. Fear does not require debate, it does not require belief. It demands compliance. That is why the most enduring systems of control are not built on affection, but on carefully crafted fear. The powerful know this, and they wield fear with precision, never admitting openly how much of their authority rests upon it. Fear is not always the threat of death. Death is final, and desperation can make men rebel when they believe they have nothing left to lose. The most effective fear is subtler: fear of loss, fear of exclusion, fear of humiliation, fear of uncertainty. A man will bow to authority not because he faces execution, but because he fears losing his wealth, his reputation, his status, or the comfort of belonging. The threat of ruin is often more effective than the threat of the sword. It whispers constantly, keeping him obedient without needing force. The powerful also understand that fear must be paired with silence. Silence is not weakness. It is an instrument of control. A leader who speaks too often, who reveals his thoughts and intentions, gives away his advantage. Words can be measured, twisted, and used against you. But silence breeds uncertainty. Silence forces others to imagine, to doubt, to fear what you might be thinking or planning. An enemy can defend against words, but how does he defend against the unknown? Silence also forces respect. Men chatter endlessly, revealing their weaknesses through careless speech, but the one who remains silent appears calculating, controlled, and dangerous. Others will project onto silence whatever they fear most, often making it far more powerful than anything you could have said. In negotiations, Silence forces the other side to fill the void with words they later regret. In conflict, silence unsettles, creating a presence heavier than noise ever could. The one who masters silence learns how to dominate without lifting a hand. Together, fear and silence create an unbreakable atmosphere of control. Imagine the ruler who speaks sparingly, who punishes swiftly when defied, but who otherwise remains shrouded in silence. His subjects will invent reasons to obey him, fearing both his hidden intentions and his visible wrath. He need not raise his voice or explain his authority. The silence itself commands reverence, and the fear of consequences ensures compliance. The masses will tell themselves stories about his power, stories he never had to confirm or deny. Those who fail to grasp this truth rely too much on persuasion. They waste energy trying to convince others, trying to win devotion through endless words. But persuasion is temporary. It fades when circumstances change. Fear lingers. Silence endures. When combined, they outlast loyalty, outmaneuver affection, and outweigh reason. The ruler who speaks less, yet punishes decisively, is remembered far longer than the one who spoke beautifully, but allowed himself to be mocked or ignored. There is also power in selective silence. To speak when unnecessary weakens authority, but to withhold words strategically multiplies it. Silence after betrayal makes others uneasy, waiting for the inevitable strike. Silence before a decision forces rivals to reveal their intentions first. Silence during conflict makes enemies question whether they are walking into a trap. Every moment of silence becomes a weapon. Every pause a reminder that uncertainty is more terrifying than certainty. The masses are taught to value transparency, openness, and honesty. They are told that leaders must speak openly, that silence is weakness, that fear is cruelty. These teachings are not truths, they are safeguards, designed to prevent ordinary men from discovering how the game of power is really played. For in the shadows, fear and silence rule far more effectively than speeches or promises ever could. The powerful cannot afford for the masses to realize this, because once understood, the entire facade of love and loyalty crumbles. The inconvenient truth about morality is paraded as the cornerstone of society, the compass that guides men toward justice, fairness, and order. It is preached in temples, written into laws, and repeated endlessly by rulers who wish to appear righteous. Yet morality, as most people understand it, is not a truth but a tool. It is a performance designed to pacify the masses, a set of rules meant to keep people compliant and predictable. Those who wield real power know this. They know that morality binds only those naive enough to obey it blindly. Behind the curtains, where true decisions are made, morality is discarded, and only results matter. The dangerous truth is that morality was never created to protect the individual. It was created to protect the structure of control. Rules about loyalty, obedience, and sacrifice are not universal truths. They are chains placed upon the majority to keep them useful to those above them. The rulers of every age understood that the crowd needed order, and the easiest way to maintain that order was to convince men that obedience to moral codes was sacred. The masses follow these codes because they believe they are virtuous, while the powerful exploit them as a convenient means of control. This is why you see a sharp divide between public behavior and private decision making. Publicly, leaders speak of justice, fairness, compassion, and virtue. They declare themselves defenders of morality, symbols of what is good and right. But in private chambers, when the crowd is absent and the stakes are real, morality has no place. Decisions are made not according to what is right, but according to what secures advantage. If a lie ensures stability, the lie is told. If cruelty secures obedience, cruelty is delivered. If betrayal preserves power, betrayal becomes necessity. The outcome is all that matters, and morality is an obstacle only for those too weak to see past it. This hypocrisy is not an accident. It is deliberate. Leaders must wear the mask of morality because it gives the masses comfort. People want to believe that their rulers are guided by principles, that justice governs decisions, that fairness protects them from corruption. Without this illusion, chaos would erupt. Men who see morality as nothing more than a performance understand that it is a stage built to calm the herd, while they themselves are free to act according to advantage. They know that power does not survive on virtue, it survives on calculation, deception, and force when necessary. The inconvenient truth is that morality is conditional. What is considered moral shifts with time, culture, and circumstance. A ruler who shows mercy today may be praised as just, but the same mercy tomorrow may be condemned as weakness. What is celebrated as virtue in one generation is mocked as foolishness in the next. Those who cling to morality as an absolute law are bound to be crushed by its inconsistency. The wise understand that morality is flexible, and they bend it as circumstances demand. This does not mean the powerful reject morality entirely. On the contrary, they embrace it publicly, using it as a weapon. By presenting themselves as moral, they disarm suspicion. They declare their wars as righteous, their punishments as just, their ambitions as selfless service. Morality becomes their cloak, shielding their true intentions. It becomes the language of persuasion, the mask that keeps the crowd from questioning the blood spilled beneath the throne. The true game is not to live by morality, but to manipulate it, to weaponize it, to use it as a net in which others trap themselves. Consider this: a man who follows morality rigidly is predictable. He will hesitate to lie, to betray, to deceive. His enemies can exploit this, maneuvering him into situations where his rigid adherence to principle becomes his downfall. Meanwhile, the man who treats morality as a tool is free. He can appear virtuous when it suits him and ruthless when it is necessary. He can present himself as the defender of justice, while quietly bending every rule in his favor. The crowd sees only the performance and mistakes it for reality, while the results speak for themselves. The most dangerous thing about morality is that it convinces men to bind themselves. A soldier who refuses to betray his oath, even when his commander betrays him, has been enslaved by morality. A leader who refuses to break a promise, even when circumstances demand it, has been trapped by morality. The masses admire such men, calling them honorable, but history forgets them quickly. Power belongs to those who understand that morality is never an end in itself. It is only a stage, a mask, a costume worn when it is useful and discarded when it is not. The forbidden knowledge of control, the greatest secret, the one never taught openly, is that control is not maintained by chains, armies, or prisons. It is maintained by illusions. People believe they are free, that their choices are their own, that their opinions are born from reason and conviction. But the truth is far more unsettling. Most men are controlled without realizing it, shaped not by force but by carefully crafted appearances. This is the forbidden knowledge, the truth that must remain hidden, because once seen, the illusions no longer hold. Control begins with perception. Men act not according to reality, but according to what they believe reality to be. If you control the story, you control their actions. A man will march to war believing he is defending his homeland, when in truth he is securing the ambitions of someone he has never met. A worker will devote his life to a cause, believing he is serving justice, while in reality he is enriching the pockets of another. People rarely question the narratives fed to them, because questioning is uncomfortable. It is easier to obey, to believe, to accept the story that makes suffering meaningful than to face the possibility that they are being used. The rulers of every age have understood this. They do not govern by constant force, because force breeds resistance. Instead, they govern by shaping belief. They manufacture heroes and enemies. They invent ideals worth dying for. They paint illusions of prosperity, loyalty, and destiny. The people do not need to be chained when their minds are already caged. A man who believes he is free will guard his own prison. Illusion is not limited to grand politics. It infects every level of power. A leader cultivates the illusion of strength, even when he feels weak, because strength perceived is often more valuable than strength possessed. A merchant creates the illusion of scarcity to drive desire, though his storerooms overflow. A rival spreads the illusion of betrayal to fracture alliances without lifting a sword. Control does not demand truth. It demands convincing illusions, repeated until they are accepted as reality. The forbidden truth is that even your own choices are often illusions. What you think of as your will is shaped by forces you do not see. The words repeated around you, the fears implanted in you, the examples you are taught to admire or despise. You choose within a framework built for you, believing you are free, when in fact your options were designed to keep you within invisible walls. When a man believes rebellion is impossible, he does not rebel, not because he cannot, but because he does not even think to try. This is why those who control information hold more power than those who control armies. The sword can kill, but information can prevent rebellion before it is born. Armies are expensive, but belief is self-sustaining. Entire populations can be ruled through stories, appearances, and narratives that make obedience feel like freedom and suffering feel like duty. The rulers of the world are not always the ones in thrones or parliaments. They are often those who decide what others are allowed to see, to hear, and to think. But this knowledge is dangerous. Most men cannot bear it. To realize that their lives, their loyalties, their convictions are shaped by illusions shatters the comforting world they cling to. They prefer to believe in morality, in loyalty, in strength, in justice, because these illusions give life meaning. Without them, they would see only manipulation, only the machinery of control, and many would collapse under the weight of such truth. That is why this knowledge must remain forbidden, why it is hidden beneath layers of ritual, tradition, and spectacle. The illusions must be preserved for the masses, even as the few manipulate them for power. The one who sees through the illusions is no longer controlled by them. He recognizes that chains are unnecessary when minds are shackled. He sees how men cling to appearances, how they willingly serve their own oppressors, how they defend their own prisons. And he understands that to rise above the masses, he must not simply reject illusions, but learn to weave them. For control does not belong to those who fight illusions. It belongs to those who create them. The truths you were never meant to know strip away the illusions that keep most men blind. Power is never where it seems. It hides in shadows, behind whispers and unseen hands. Loyalty is never eternal. It bends to self, interest, and collapses the moment it no longer serves. Fear and silence bind men more securely than promises or affection, and the one who masters them commands obedience without struggle. Morality is not a law but a costume, worn to pacify the crowd while true decisions are made in ruthless calculation. And above all, control is not maintained by chains, but by illusions so subtle that people defend them as if they were their own freedom. To see these truths is to stand apart from the masses, to tear away the mask and glimpse the machinery behind it. Most will never dare to look, for it is easier to live in the comfort of illusions than to bear the weight of reality. But for those who do, for those who endure the loneliness of clarity, the path opens toward mastery, not of the world as it pretends to be, but of the world as it truly is.